My sister drained $500,000 from my military account just as I was slicing our grandfather's birthday cake under a fluttering American flag. My name is Major May Lin, 38 years old, a financial officer in the United States Army. I've safeguarded multi-million-dollar defense budgets in volatile regions, but I never suspected the deepest betrayal would come from my own kin. Fresh from a deployment in Eastern Europe, I was poised to launch a pivotal project, a training hub for retired veterans in my hometown. What I stepped into wasn't a warm reunion. It was a calculated ambush, orchestrated by those who called me family. Just as I thought I had time to regroup, my phone rang. The Pentagon was on the line. Have you ever been betrayed by your own family? Drop a comment below and share where you're reading from. I'm curious how far this story travels. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you believe honor can't be stolen, even by those closest to you. I hadn't seen the Lin family farm in 12 years, but the gravel still crunched familiarly under my boots. The oak trees along the drive had grown sturdier, like seasoned warriors standing taller with time, and the porch light flickered with the same soft golden glow of childhood Sundays. Yet the silence felt heavier this time, not calming but ominous, like a storm gathering strength. My name is Major May Lin. I'm 38, a financial officer in the U.S. Army, recently back from a 6-month mission in Poland. I've served 18 years, managed budgets that would stagger most, and survived places where instinct outraces fear. But no military training braced me for the treachery waiting in my childhood home. The occasion was my grandfather's 70th birthday, General Wei Lin, a retired icon, silver-haired but still sharp as a blade. The invitation seemed sincere, written in elegant script on cream-colored cardstock. But behind it was a family that never quite understood me. I wasn't the charming one or the delicate one. I was the one who answered yes, sir, to superiors and held myself to no excuses. My cousins called me distant. My aunts dubbed me Miss Iron. My younger half-sister Hannah once said I looked born for a uniform. I took it as praise. I doubt she meant it that way. Still, I returned not for them, but for something bigger. I'd secured a military-backed loan, $500,000 to build a workforce training center for veterans in Virginia. Welding, mechanics, farming, practical skills for lives after service. It wasn't flashy, but it was vital, a legacy worth forging. That night, we gathered around the old farmhouse table, the scene deceptively unchanged. The spread was classic, pot roast, cornbread, mashed potatoes, but the air carried the familiar Lin family judgment, sharper in silence than in words. Then Hannah spoke, raising her half-empty bourbon glass with a sly grin. "Guess anyone can play entrepreneur these days," she said, tilting it toward me, "even someone who lives by salutes." A few laughs rippled. My aunt hid a smirk behind her napkin. I didn't react. I'd faced men who wielded taunts like weapons, testing defenses with subtle jabs. I let her words fade. Explaining myself wasn't my style. 18 years in the Army taught me that when someone strikes at your uniform, they fear the strength it represents. That night, for the first time in years, I sensed someone at that table feared me. They had reason to. Dinner unfolded like a rehearsed play. Every line landed on cue, every pause filled with hollow chuckles. I passed the cornbread to Aunt Gia, who avoided my eyes. Across the table, my cousin Kenji boasted about his new boat, while Uncle Liang laughed loudest at his own quips. No one asked about Poland or how I'd fared through back-to-back deployments. That's family. Sometimes the sharpest wounds come not from malice, but from neglect. Hannah's wife Suki spoke up as I reached for my glass, still in her cocktail dress from earlier photos, her tone sweet but cutting. "At least May doesn't worry about money," she said, smiling at the air. "Government work comes with perks, right?" I held her gaze, not with anger, but with precision. She looked away. They saw my salary, but not the 20-hour shifts. They saw my uniform, but not the weight I carried home. I stayed silent. Let them think what they wanted. After dinner, I climbed the stairs to the guest room, its faded wallpaper and creaky bed frame unchanged. The air smelled of cedar and old linens, soothing in its familiarity. But as I approached the desk where I'd left my laptop, something felt off. The screen was closed, but the charger was plugged into the wrong port, left, not right, like someone unfamiliar had tampered with it. I lifted the lid. The screen glowed, revealing rearranged desktop icons and a cleared browser history. My pulse didn't race. It slowed the way it does in combat when instinct speaks before logic. I didn't panic. I opened my password vault, reset everything, and re-enabled multi-factor authentication, though it had been active before. I scanned for suspicious logins. Nothing yet. But my gut, honed by years in the army, was screaming. Something had been touched. Not just my laptop, but something meant to hurt, disguised as carelessness. In this house, someone had declared a quiet war. They didn't know I was built to win it. The call came at dawn as mist lingered over the pastures like a reluctant ghost. I stood by the upstairs window, coffee untouched, when my phone buzzed. USAA Fraud Department. Major Lynn, we're verifying overnight transactions. My grip tightened. I sat at the desk, deliberate and slow. Go on. The voice was calm, professional, but the words cut like shrapnel. 4 transfers totaling $500,000 made between 1:12 a.m. and 3:47 a.m. from my primary military account. The IP address was local, tied to my current location. Valid credentials were used. I didn't speak. I didn't breathe. I stared at my laptop's blank screen, willing it to reveal the truth. That's impossible, I said, my voice empty. The rep promised a detailed email report. I thanked her, though gratitude was the last thing I felt. I changed into jeans and a sweatshirt, tied my hair back, and descended the stairs like I was heading to a firing range. The kitchen smelled of bacon and maple syrup, familiar, deceptive. Suki was humming. Uncle Liang was chuckling. Hana sat at the table, scrolling her phone, spoon clinking against her cereal bowl. I stood in the doorway for 5 seconds before speaking. My account's been emptied. The room froze. I held up my phone. $500,000 gone. Between 1 and 4 a.m., from a device on this house's network. The room went still, the hum of the toaster fading into silence. I don't know who did it, I said evenly, but I know how to find out, and I will. Hana didn't look up immediately. She took another deliberate bite of cereal, her spoon scraping the bowl. Then, under her breath, she muttered, "Who needs that kind of money just to teach vets how to fix cars?" I fixed my gaze on her. She smirked. In the army, we call it psychological warfare. Death by 1,000 cuts, not one strike. "Hana," I said, "you just fired the first shot out loud." I asked once, clearly, calmly, for everyone to hand over their phones. Not accusing, not yelling, just giving them a chance to stand with me. No one moved. Suki blinked, confused, like I'd spoken in code. Aunt Gia gripped her coffee mug tighter. Uncle Liang suddenly studied a mark on the tablecloth. Only one person didn't waver. Grandpa Wei. He nodded slowly, pulled his phone from his flannel shirt's breast pocket, and placed it face up on the table, like a soldier laying down his weapon before a fight. That gesture cut deep. It told me the others knew, or at least suspected, and lacked the courage to face it. I stepped back, jaw tight, and walked to the porch. The old screen door creaked, just as it did when I was 15, sneaking out for a late-night run. I stood there, craving air, space, anything free of deceit. Then I felt a soft tap on my elbow. Yuna, my cousin. Half my age, but sharper than the rest of them combined. A junior at Virginia Tech studying cybersecurity. Years ago, she'd helped me set up a silent tracking app on my laptop for deployments to less friendly places than Europe. "It's still running," she whispered, holding up her phone. "You gave me backup cloud access for emergencies. This feels like one." 10 minutes later, we sat in the old tool shed behind the barn, perched on overturned buckets like operatives in a covert mission. Yuna opened her tablet and pulled up the report. Keystrokes, IP logs, timestamps. There, clear as day, was Hana's face, captured by the laptop's webcam at 1:06 a.m. as she entered my room. 3 failed password attempts, then success on the 4th. I didn't cry or speak. I walked back to the house, stood in the center of the kitchen, and looked straight at her. "Hana," I said, my voice steady, "is there anything you'd like to say?" She grinned like she'd outsmarted the world, but I'd already seen her reflection in the screen. Hana didn't flinch. She leaned back in her chair, casual, like she'd just closed a deal, not robbed a federal account. "You're military," she said, lifting her coffee. "You of all people should get sacrifice. I needed that money more than you." Her words stung like ice, sharp and cold. I didn't reply. Not yet. That familiar calm settled in my chest, the kind I felt in Kosovo, crouched behind sandbags, waiting for a drone that might never come. The space between provocation and response is sacred. You don't waste it with noise. Then my phone lit up on the counter. Pentagon Command Fraud Division, I answered. Major Lin. Major, came a firm female voice. This is Legal Affairs, Major Kim Chen. We've detected suspicious activity on your officer account, traced to domestic access points. You're in Virginia, correct? Yes, ma'am. Lin family property. About 10 people present. Are you in immediate danger? No, ma'am. But I believe the suspect is in the room. I didn't need to glance at Hana. I felt her smirk falter. I'm putting you on speaker, I said, pressing the button and setting the phone on the dining table. The room fell silent, like the air itself had been cut off. This is Major Chen, U.S. Army Legal Division, addressing all present. You are advised not to leave the premises. A military investigation is underway regarding unauthorized access and transfer of federal funds. Suki gasped. Aunt Gia's fork clattered. Hana's jaw tightened just a fraction. Chen continued, CID is en route. Expected arrival in 15 minutes. Remain cooperative. The call ended. I stepped away, poured a glass of water. My hand stayed steady. 15 minutes. That's all. The Lin farmhouse had seen births, deaths, retirements, and holidays filled with noise and denial, but it had never held its breath like this. No one moved, no one fled, no one spoke, except Grandpa Wei. He looked up from his plate and said, I told you not to challenge a soldier trained to wait. The CID agents arrived with quiet precision, no guns drawn, no shouting, just 2 black SUVs on the gravel, and a firm knock. I met them outside, handing over my laptop, Yuna's tablet, printed logs, and a USB with the webcam footage. Keystroke records, device IDs, local IP confirmation, I said, and a webcam capture of the suspect mid-access. They nodded, taking notes. A younger agent, steady and composed, looked at me. Thank you, ma'am. You've done most of our work inside. The air had changed. No more facades, just raw silence. Hana sat at the table's end, hands flat on the wood, eyes empty. She didn't speak when they cuffed her, not even as they read the charges: unauthorized access to a federal system, wire fraud, misuse of protected military financial infrastructure, charges that carry years, not months. Suki broke first, standing, voice cracking, mascara streaking. She did it for me and our son, she cried. She said it was reallocated from a veterans program. No one responded. It wasn't just theft, it was betrayal. The kind that empties trust, leaving only bones. Grandpa Wei stood, slow and deliberate, looking at Hana not as a criminal, but as the girl he'd taught to chop wood and respect her elders. His voice held no anger, just weary sorrow from a place older than war. I raised you better, he said softly. You don't strike family in the back. Not in this house, not ever. He turned to me with a nod, heavier than any salute I'd ever received. As they led Hana out, I didn't feel vindicated. I felt history crack, just enough to let light through. The military insurance system restored my $500,000 within 30 days. No fanfare, just a direct deposit on a dreary Wednesday morning and a brief letter from the Defense Finance Office. No apologies, no flourish, just the return of what was mine. But the money wasn't the triumph. I used it to break ground on the Lin mission, the training center I'd come home to build, a place for veterans to restart with their hands, not just their pasts, welding, electrical work, auto repair, skills that carry dignity. I planted it on the north acre of the old Lin farm, the same soil where my father taught me to swing a hammer, the same porch where my sister smirked while stealing from me. Now that land would build something enduring instead of breaking someone apart. Yuna became my first volunteer, heading IT, boosting morale, and brewing coffee that didn't taste like engine oil. She refused payment. I believe in this, she said, and that was enough. Suki filed for divorce 3 weeks after Hana's arrest. She visited the site once while we were painting the new sign, her heels sinking into the gravel, clutching the hand of a quiet boy with Hana's jawline, but none of her arrogance. I didn't know how far it went, she said, voice shaking. I didn't know who she'd become. I nodded, saying little. She handed me a folded note, an apology scrawled in unsteady ink, and left without seeking forgiveness. I passed it to Yuna. We didn't read it. Hana got 8 years in federal prison. I skipped the sentencing. That morning, I was teaching 5 veterans to arc weld a steel beam without scorching their hands. One had lost 3 fingers. Another's tremors forced him to grip the torch with both hands. But when they laid that first clean weld, their smiles felt like home. I didn't need to see Hana in court. I was already where I belonged. A year later, I sat at the same long wooden table in the Lynn farmhouse dining room. The wood's grain still flowed like rivers etched by time, the chairs creaking as they did when I was 16, sneaking in from evening drills. But the faces around it had changed. To my left, Una scribbled on a clipboard, pen between her teeth. Across from her, Grandpa Way, older, quieter, but still razor-sharp, sipped black coffee, gazing at the sunrise through the window. Beside him sat 3 veterans, Kaido, whose limp didn't stop him from mastering circuits, Haru, who brought biscuits every Thursday, and Aiko, a former combat medic who taught welding better than I ever could. No forced laughter, no smirks behind mugs, no veiled jabs posing as family banter, just voices with substance and silence that felt safe. On the wall behind me hung our mission statement, painted in navy and gold. Real honor protects, not betrays. Framed beside it was a photo of our first graduating class, 6 veterans, 2 single moms, and 1 teenager who swore he'd never touch a wrench until he did. Sometimes I thought of Hana, not with anger, just a quiet recognition, like a scar you no longer hide. I hadn't seen her since that morning and didn't expect to, but that table no longer belonged to those who wielded power through deceit or silence. It belonged to builders, survivors, people who'd lost and still showed up to begin again. As I cleared my plate and stood to refill Grandpa's coffee, a calm settled within me. Not vengeance, not victory, but peace. If someone out there has ever lost money, time, or trust because someone close thought they could take it and leave you empty, hear this. They can drain your account, erase you from their story, but they can't touch what makes you rise. Your self-respect. That's where true wealth lies.